On the day of the wedding, the officiant asked her, "Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" She didn't answer. I spoke for her. "She doesn't." A gasp rippled through the crowd. I added, "Funny, neither do I." After the wedding, she fell to her knees in a frenzy, begging me, pleading for me to let her go. When Anna Collins' hand was placed in mine by her father, her gaze drifted to the audience, her eyes landing somewhere beneath the stage. Following her line of sight, I saw Henry Rockefeller, my half-brother. I kept silent, pretending I knew nothing. The officiant's solemn voice cut through the silence. "Miss Collins, do you take Mr. George to be your husband? To love, honor, and cherish him, in good times and bad, in sickness and health, in poverty and wealth, until death do you part? Do you? Will you marry him?" Anna Collins bit her lip, but said nothing. Instead, she turned her gaze back to Henry. The officiant repeated the question, his voice growing more insistent. Still, Anna remained silent. The once lively room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. I grabbed the microphone from the officiant. "She doesn't want to." My voice cracked like thunder, jolting Anna out of her trance. She snapped her eyes back to me in confusion. The room erupted into whispers and gasps. The officiant, clearly flustered, tried to salvage the awkwardness in the air, but I was already stepping down from the stage. I walked toward Henry, ignoring the rage in his clenched fists, which were already trembling with barely contained fury. I straightened his tie, then patted him on the shoulder. Henry froze, then jerked back, taking a few steps away, his eyes betraying a flicker of panic. After all, I was the groom, and yet he looked more put together than I did. I stood half a head taller than Henry, broader in frame, a presence he couldn't ignore. He tried to break free as I grabbed his arm, but there was no escape. With gasps and cries from the crowd, I dragged him up to the stage, stopping next to Anna. A stunned silence blanketed the room. Anna was the first to react. She rushed to grab Henry, pulling him behind her protectively, her face twisted with open disgust. I acted like I didn't see it. I turned toward the guests. "Funny thing," I said, voice cutting through the thick tension. "I don't want to either." Each word hung in the air, deliberate. As the screen behind us, which had been showing photos of Anna and me, flickered, it suddenly went black. It flashed back to images of Anna and Henry, holding hands on a beach, kissing on a Ferris wheel, countless lavish wedding photos. The whispers and murmurs grew louder, the air thick with speculation. I smiled, meeting the gazes of the guests. "Sorry to disappoint," I said, my tone almost amused. "As you can see, the stars of today's union aren't me. It's my brother, Henry." My actions left the Collins family utterly humiliated. Anna stood on the stage, her face flushed with shame, while Henry's expression was as dark as a storm cloud, his anger practically radiating off him. When my father stormed off, most of the guests followed suit, leaving behind only the Collins family, who muttered in low, angry tones. The marriage was, of course, called off. The Collins family's reputation in the business world plummeted, their stock prices crashing along with it. Anna hadn't expected me to drag her and Henry's affair into the open. Under the pressure of public opinion, Anna wanted me to step forward and clear up the misunderstanding. I refused outright. I acted like nothing had happened, casually reporting to my father about the company's recent performance, as if everything were business as usual. But I hadn't anticipated Henry bringing Anna to our Rockefeller family estate. When the butler led them in, I was lounging on the sofa, barely glancing at them. Henry's face was unreadable, while Anna fidgeted nervously, her hands tightly clasped in front of her. My father waved for them to sit down. Henry visibly relaxed. Anna, on the other hand, brightened, sitting next to him without hesitation, ready to put on a performance. "George, you really misunderstood me," she said, her voice trembling with feigned sincerity. "I swear, at first, I really did want to marry you. But I—" Her voice faltered, sounding like she was about to cry, as if trying to explain herself. I shot her a dismissive look, but to my surprise, Henry was the one who spoke up. "George, I admit that I am sorry for you. But you can't put both our families in such a difficult position. Father's getting old, you know. You know what people are saying about us, right?" Henry's face was twisted with frustration. I couldn't help raising an eyebrow. The way he was acting, it almost seemed like I had stolen his wife, not the other way around. "You still know he's your brother? Then how dare you do such things?" My father slammed his fist on the table, making the whole room shake. Henry flinched, his lips trembling. Anna, seeing the tension, subtly moved away, putting a little more space between her and Henry. I couldn't help but find it amusing. I casually studied Anna, letting my gaze linger on her abdomen. Anna quickly covered her stomach, trying to hide it but making it even more obvious. I couldn't resist. Father, let it go. This marriage still has to happen, after all. Anna's already pregnant with Henry's child. Isn't that right, Henry? The words sent Anna's face from red to pale in an instant. My father's expression grew darker. Henry opened his mouth a few times, but nothing came out. Finally, my father, unable to keep quiet, spoke coldly. Don't try to use the child to pressure me. The Rockefeller family won't recognize that child. Miss Collins, just stepping into the Rockefeller family home today is already showing you enough respect. And Henry, stop with your little schemes. The heir to the Rockefeller family is George Rockefeller, including the Rockefeller Group. My father's words were final, firm. Anna's tears began to fall like pearls slipping off a broken string, landing with soft thuds on her arm. The malice in her eyes flashed, though quickly masked. Henry's face turned ashen. He nervously wiped Anna's tears, glaring at me with barely contained rage. I acted like I hadn't seen it, patting my father's hand to signal him to calm down. Seeing my indifference, my father finally relaxed, his expression softening. You two can go now. My father began ushering them out. Anna, clearly embarrassed, stood up with Henry, both of them silently seething. As they left, my father let out a sigh, his face troubled. If it weren't for the death of that girl Selina, you would have been married and had children by now. My body stiffened, and a sharp pang of pain cut through my cold heart. Yes. If she were still here, she would have been my wife. We would have had our own children. I forced a smile for my father, trying to reassure him. But just as Anna was almost out the door, she stopped dead in her tracks, as if hearing our conversation. She turned slowly, her eyes locking with mine from across the room. Her brow furrowed as if deep in thought. Then, her eyes widened in realization. She grabbed Henry's arm and stormed out. I watched her retreating back, a small smile tugging at my lips. I knew then, some secrets couldn't be hidden any longer. After leaving the Rockefeller family estate, I went to the parking lot alone. I had barely taken a few steps when Anna appeared. She wrapped her arms around my waist from behind, pressing herself against me. When I finally stopped, she moved to stand in front of me, her eyes brimming with tears. She stood on tiptoe, tilting her head to try to touch my lips, her ragged breath fanning across my face. I furrowed my brow slightly and shoved her away. Anna staggered and fell to the ground, her eyes full of resentment and bitterness. George, it hurts. She wore the same pitiful expression that used to tug at my heart, her tears falling one by one onto the ground. But that was the past. I smiled bitterly, my gaze dripping with mockery. My silence only seemed to enrage her further. She frantically pulled a stack of photos from her bag and threw them at me with force. The sharp edges of the photos scraped across my arm, drawing blood. As the blood began to drip, I saw her face, the face I could never forget, the face I longed for every day. I crouched down to pick up the scattered photos. You're not allowed to pick them up. George, you can't pick them up. Anna screamed at me as she grabbed my arm, trying to stop me. I ignored her, shaking her off forcefully. Perhaps my hatred was too obvious in my eyes, because Anna froze, releasing her grip on my arm. I went through the photos one by one, picking them up and looking at each. In the end, Anna could only slump next to me, watching. She sobbed uncontrollably, as if she had always loved me. I carefully gathered the photos, brushing off the dirt that had stuck to them. Step by step, I moved closer to Anna, my grip tightening on her chin. I smiled. Every word I spoke pierced through her, like a slow, painful execution. Anna, what a pity. You just don't compare to Selina. I met Anna after a car accident. It was a serious one, with one dead and one injured. Anna was the lucky one, suffering only minor scratches. The one who tragically lost her life was her sister, Selina Collins. My first real encounter with Anna was at Selina Collins' memorial service. It was also the first time I saw Anna's mother, her face streaked with tears. After the service, Anna started reaching out to me frequently. Sometimes I agreed to meet her, sometimes I turned her down. Eventually, Anna showed up with a huge bouquet of bright roses, openly wanting to confess her feelings. I deliberately didn't respond. It wasn't until the Collins family's company was on the verge of collapse that I stepped in to support them with everything I had. Seizing the opportunity, the Collins family proposed an arranged marriage. I didn't refuse. I hadn't yet gotten what I wanted. After shaking Anna off, I drove to the cemetery. The closer I got to the gravestone, the heavier my chest felt. I was here just yesterday, but it feels like a century has passed. After running out of the wedding, I came to find her. I brought her the wedding dress she loved most. It was the very dress I had asked a famous designer to custom make when we were together. Even the decorations at the wedding had been chosen by us together. She was Selena. The Selena who had died in that car accident, Anna's sister. I leaned against the gravestone, my hand slowly tracing the photo etched on it. The cold, unfeeling touch constantly reminded me that she was gone. She had been gone for a long time. Anna was Selena's sister. They looked almost identical. But aside from the resemblance, Anna was nothing like Selena. I met Selena when I was studying abroad. At the time, I had gone overseas to gain experience at my parents' request, to study finance and business management. Selena was my classmate. The first time I saw her, she was wearing a white dress, struggling to reach a book on the top shelf. That was the first time I felt my heart stir for a girl. Selena was smart, but she was also timid. She started to depend on me more and more. We dated for 4 years while abroad. After returning home, Selena said she wanted to take me to meet the two most important people in her life, her mother and her sister. The day Selena passed away, we had made plans. I waited eagerly for her to come find me, but instead, I received the news of her car accident. Selena had died on the way to see me. I spread out the photos Anna had gathered, one by one, in front of the gravestone. Tears finally fell. The night before the wedding, I got what I had wanted, the evidence of the truth behind Selena's death. But I couldn't bring myself to tell Selena. I stared silently at the gravestone, until Anna's harsh words echoed in my mind once again, the ones she had left me with when she walked away. "George, don't overestimate yourself. We, the Collins family, can stand tall without you. We can still be at the top of the industry." I had known all along that the Collins family had placed spies around me. That's how Anna was able to investigate my relationship with Selena in just 2 hours, and throw these materials in my face. I had tolerated their little tricks. Until Henry showed up. Henry came to my door suddenly, claiming to be a long-lost relative. He said he was my half-brother. I could smell the scent of conspiracy in the air. Like a cat, I watched the mouse waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sure enough, Anna had been seeing Henry in secret. When I laid out the evidence of their meetings, Anna would always bow her head immediately. "George, Henry is your brother. How could I have anything to do with him? Please, trust me." I stared at the face that looked so much like Selena's, remaining silent. They had already set their sights on me. What they wanted was the Rockefeller family fortune. They had schemed against Selena, against my father, and now, against me. I couldn't help but sneer. Old grudges and new ones, time to settle them all. The wedding incident was completely suppressed. They say a lot of money was spent. The media coverage shifted completely to Anna and Henry. A perfect match, a marriage of high society. Anna even started attending business galas with Henry. Henry openly claimed to be the second son of the Rockefeller family. As a result, a controversy erupted over the heir to the Rockefeller fortune. Through this, Henry brought in several profitable deals for Anna. The Collins family's reputation soared. Anna and Henry were thriving. Large groups of reporters began gathering outside the Rockefeller Group's headquarters, seeking confirmation. Some even camped outside our family's manor. My father tried to clarify a few times, but I stopped him. No response was the best response. I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the towering buildings, a cold smile forming on my lips. The feeling of falling from a great height must be exhilarating. Secretary Daisy knocked on the office door. Several senior partners, longtime collaborators with the Rockefeller family, walked in, their faces full of frustration. "George, what's going on? The rumors outside are getting worse, and your father isn't saying anything. Is that Henry really your brother?" I nodded, then shook my head. These people were old friends of my father, having watched me grow up. A year ago, I had started to take on more responsibilities within the company, so we met frequently. As we drank coffee, we exchanged vital information. The Collins family had set its sights on a newly developed artificial intelligence project. Originally focused on real estate, they wanted to branch out into new fields. But artificial intelligence required a huge amount of money. To break free from the financial constraints of the Rockefeller family, Henry helped Anna secure multiple rounds of funding. We raised our glasses and exchanged knowing smiles. We would see how it all played out. The Collins family's new project quickly made progress. Multiple rounds of funding were raised, totaling billions. Their new company was hailed as the next big thing in tech. I watched the endless interviews playing on the screen, feeling a sense of satisfaction. A car slowly pulled up in front of the company, and a man and woman got out. The woman slipped her arm into the man's, clearly in love. I smirked, looking down on them from above. Finally, you've arrived. Henry strode into the meeting room. Anna followed behind him, her 5-month pregnancy showing. The day my father made it clear to Henry not to have any delusions, Henry officially joined the Collins family company. Perhaps wanting to avoid unnecessary back and forth with me, Henry went straight to the point. He handed me a letter. I casually tapped my fingers on the desk. At my signal, Secretary Daisy took the letter from Henry and stamped it with the company seal. The fluid motion made Anna's breath catch. You're not going to look at it? Her tone carried a hint of uncertainty. But I was certain. A year ago, when the Collins family company was in turmoil, Rockefeller had become its largest shareholder by injecting capital. The Collins family and Rockefeller were already deeply intertwined. To break free quickly, the Collins family needed us to sell our shares. I chuckled lightly. Sell the shares, and we're square. My words made Anna's expression darken immediately. Square? You really want to sever ties with me like that? Anna wavered, clearly unsteady on her feet. She hadn't noticed that Henry, standing beside her, was tightly pursing his lips, looking extremely displeased. I was amused by Anna's words. That's a better understanding, actually. A flicker of anger appeared on Anna's face as she deliberately leaned into Henry's embrace and rubbed against him. George, you should have seen the recent news. You'd better think carefully. I had already made up my mind. I instructed Daisy to have Anna settle the accounts. Anna, her face dark with anger, grabbed Henry and stormed out. My mood only lifted further. Anna and Henry's net worth continues to rise. At parties, they became the center of attention, with everyone eager to be near them. I stood at the bar, lost in thought, when Anna casually leaned in beside me. She clinked her glass against mine, the sound sharp and clear. The red liquid swirling in her glass reminded me of the blood spilled at the scene of that car accident. In a daze, I thought of Selena once again. Anna fixed her burning gaze on me and downed the contents of her glass in one go. You see, Henry can do just as well. The Rockefeller family isn't just about you. She asked me. I placed the glass she had touched down, intent on leaving. George. Anna's voice suddenly became urgent. George, why did you agree to marry me in the first place? She tried to hide the tremor in her voice, but I caught it anyway. I spoke coldly, my eyes locking onto hers, and the icy gaze of Henry behind her, staring at us with disdain. Why? Because it's what you and your mother wanted, isn't it? My gaze was sharp, as though I could see right through her. You knew? Anna took a step back, panic flashing in her eyes. I shook my head, signaling that I knew nothing. Anna, now that the marriage's purpose has been achieved, stop bothering me. With that, I walked away. Of course, I knew exactly what she was referring to. What I should know, and what I shouldn't, I knew it all. After liquidation, the company swiftly issued a statement confirming the sale of shares. My father finally stepped in to clarify things. The rumors that had spread like wildfire finally died down. Yes. From start to finish, I was the only heir acknowledged by my father. Henry was nothing more than an illegitimate son. Of course, the Collins family, now fully recovered, didn't care at all. After announcing the engagement, the Collins family had already made a hefty profit. Henry had caused some trouble, but my father quickly had him kicked out. There will come a day when you'll beg me, Henry had threatened. It was laughable. So, just as their new company was preparing to go public, I made my move. A mouse that had been jumping around too long needed to be scared back into its hole. Rockefeller began to pressure the Collins family's company, pushing it to the brink. My actions acted as a fuse, directly setting off the investors who had previously shown interest in Henry. They all turned on him. The break in the funding chain caused Henry's new round of financing to fail. But the development and marketing of artificial intelligence products required enormous amounts of money. In an instant, the Collins family's tech company was dealt a crushing blow. Not only that, but several real estate projects the Collins family had snatched from us at Rockefeller also came to a halt. Henry, who had been so proud of his previous achievements, was now in a panic. He made a rare attempt to reach me, calling several times, but I rejected all of them. In desperation, Anna came to find me, her pregnancy evident. She even threatened to expose my father's infidelity and Henry's status as an illegitimate son if I didn't cooperate. I gave them one response. Take care of yourself first. Before they could expose my father's secrets to the media, Collins family's tech company was already on the verge of collapse. Due to a cash crunch, Anna misappropriated company funds from the Collins family and invested them into her own tech venture. This internal scandal was eventually leaked. Even though the Collins family never confirmed the claims, several investment firms were summoned for questioning. The tech company was severely scrutinized, and for a time, they were left to fend for themselves. In the business and tech world, whenever Anna's name was mentioned, it was met with ridicule. Their so-called innovations were deemed fake, promotional videos were stolen, and core team members were caught forging credentials. Their project was branded as pseudo-tech. Ultimately, Anna and Henry couldn't withstand the combined pressures of financial instability and technological failure. Within a short span, they went from being at the top to plummeting into ruin. The tech company went bankrupt, and their names became infamous. Without Rockefeller's support, Collins family's original business began to falter as well. Add to that Anna's previous embezzlement, and they were now beyond redemption. A sudden wave of frustration tightened in my chest. I went to see Selina. The night wind howled as I wrapped my coat tightly around me. I sat by Selina's gravestone, drinking heavily, trying to numb myself. Selina's wish has always been to help Anna stabilize the Collins family business before pursuing her own love. I had gone down a completely different path from Selina, but I never regretted it. I rambled on the entire night, until the first light of dawn appeared. In the haze of it all, I thought I saw Selina. Her eyes filled with sorrow and disappointment, and her figure slowly faded away from me. I knew it. Selina must blame me. Otherwise, why had she never come to see me all this time, but today, she appeared. I felt my face turn pale as I reached out into the empty air, grasping at nothing. I collapsed onto the ground, crying uncontrollably. Selina, you'll blame me, won't you? Please, don't blame me. The first time I truly learned about Anna wasn't after the accident. It was from Selina herself. After we got together, Selina would often talk about her mother, Emily, and her sister, Anna. That was one of the few times Selina ever showed a gentle side, aside from with me. I could tell Selina loved her family deeply. She told me how her mother had struggled. Selina's biological father had passed away when she was young, and Emily had no choice but to marry a much older man, Anna's father. When Anna's father passed away, he left behind a mess for the Collins family. Emily not only had to manage the business but also take care of Anna and Selina. Fortunately, Selina was a capable young woman, she excelled in her studies and helped Emily manage the company. Eventually, Emily sent Selina abroad to further her education. On the day I returned to China after graduating, Selina also finished her studies and came back with me. When the Collins family business started facing trouble, Selina was worried about her mother, so she decided to return to help. After I took over Rockefeller Group, Selina continued to work closely with Anna, offering guidance and support. But none of us expected that Selina would lose her life because of it. I sat on the ground, staring at the stars in the night sky. My heart squeezed with each painful beat, tightening and aching. I felt ashamed of what I knew. And I felt it was a tragedy for Selina. Selina's death was not an accident. That day, Anna had an argument with Selina in the car. She went wild, trying to grab the steering wheel from Selina. Neither of them noticed the truck speeding towards them. If Selina hadn't swerved the wheel at the last second, it would have been Anna who died. After the accident, the police sealed off the scene immediately. By the time I arrived, the place was a bloody mess. I felt like I was filled with lead, unable to move. I gasped for air, but it felt like Selina's breath was fading away. Yet, I couldn't find her. By the time I got to the hospital, Selina had already been declared dead and sent to the morgue. As I passed by the ward, I saw Emily. She was at her daughter's bedside, weeping uncontrollably. I also saw Selina's sister, Anna. Anna lay in a hospital bed, seemingly unharmed. But Selina was her daughter, too. I called the hospital director and went into the morgue alone. I trembled as I pulled back the white cloth. Selina's face was covered in blood. My love, lying there so still, so alone. She was always so clean, but her face was dirty. I spoke to her, but she didn't respond. I tried to wipe her face with my sleeve, but the more I wiped, the more dirt spread. I angrily slapped myself. How could I be so foolish? How could I not even clean her face? I begged Selina to open her eyes, to look at me, but she didn't. Her body grew colder, harder. It was then that I realized. Selina was gone. At Selina's funeral, the Collins family didn't make a big spectacle of it. Emily and Anna stood side by side, and Emily's tears flowed like a broken dam. I wanted to comfort her. Emily was Selina's most respected mother, and Anna was her most beloved sister. I approached them from behind, ready to speak, when I overheard their conversation. In that instant, I felt like I had fallen into an ice pit. Mom, why didn't you tell me about that beforehand? You almost killed me. Mom, Selina was doing fine abroad, why did she have to come back? Mom, the police won't find out, right? Who knew you'd be in her car? I didn't want her to die, it's just bad luck. Remember, Anna, it was the drunk driver. It has nothing to do with you. It was Selina who lost control of the wheel, you're also a victim. Anna's voice was full of impatience, not a tear in sight. Emily was pretending to cry, while trying to comfort Anna. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What had Emily arranged? What did she mean by not wanting Selina to die? A thick fog surrounded my mind, and I wanted to rush up to confront them. But reason told me I couldn't. Selina was gone. She had no one left but me. I had to uncover the truth for her. I threw money around to cover my tracks and went to the cremation room. I watched Selina's body being sent into the crematorium's furnace. I watched as the flames slowly devoured her, inch by inch, until nothing remained. I couldn't wait to understand what Emily had meant. My hatred burned like the fire in the furnace. Selina would never know that her love had been a one-sided devotion. Emily and Anna never needed Selina. They even thought she had ulterior motives. Selina would never know that her beloved mother had such a vicious face. Selina would never know that her death was intertwined with Emily's plans. At that moment, I almost felt relieved. At least Selina would never know. Otherwise, she'd be heartbroken. 2 months later, Anna entered my office again. This time, however, she wasn't accompanied by Henry. Instead, it was Anna's mother, Emily. Emily was dressed in a well-tailored dress, which made her look dignified and graceful. But I knew the filth that lay beneath her polished exterior. She sat uneasily in front of me, tears in her eyes. Anna awkwardly sat beside her. "George, are you angry with me?" Emily asked cautiously. I glanced at her, my gaze cold, my hands folded in front of me. My silence was answer enough. Emily softened her tone again, lowering herself further. "George, the Collins family owes you an apology. We made you feel uncomfortable at the wedding. It's all Anna's fault. I've given her a stern talking to." I raised my eyes to look at her, my voice laced with mockery. "Oh? How did you rebuke to her?" Emily seemed caught off guard by my directness, stumbling over her words. She nervously rubbed her hands together, a flicker of undisguised displeasure in her eyes. "George, Henry is still your brother. Now that Anna is pregnant, the child is, after all, from your Rockefeller family." Emily paused, glancing at Anna before continuing. "George, I beg you. Can you help us, give the Collins family a chance to breathe?" I couldn't help but curl my lips in amusement. At this point, Emily still thought that my falling out with the Collins family was just about that wedding. Her hypocritical face ignited the rage inside me. I fought to suppress my anger, replying coldly. "No." I excused myself to the restroom. Once I left the office, I gave my secretary Daisy a look, then walked straight to the surveillance room. On the monitor, I saw Emily standing at the door, holding it shut. She was energetically instructing Anna, while viciously insulting me. Anna sat at my desk. She quickly typed on my keyboard, entering the password to access my computer. On the screen were the proposals for a new project we at Rockefeller were developing. It was a real estate project we were considering. With government backing, it had strong planning potential. The Collins family was counting on this project to make a comeback. I hadn't intended to get involved, but since the Collins family wanted it, I thought I'd give them a nudge. I watched as Anna pulled a USB drive from her pocket, quickly copying the files. The whole process was swift, clean, as if it had been meticulously planned in advance. Once they had finished and were sitting back on the sofa, Daisy knocked on the door. When she informed them that I had a meeting, Anna visibly relaxed. Emily gave Daisy a cryptic look, then quickly pulled Anna out. Yes, Daisy, my secretary, was their mole. But what they didn't know was that Daisy was actually an undercover agent I had planted among them. I had orchestrated the release of favorable information about the project in front of Anna, misleading them into thinking they still had a chance to turn things around. I also had Daisy intentionally leak my computer password and the pre-prepared proposals. And, of course, I had installed a hidden camera in my office. Step by step, they were walking right into my trap. Soon enough, they would be harvested. On the day of the project tendering, I went to the scene to watch. Anna's proposal was presented by Henry. Of course, it went smoothly, as they had essentially rewritten it based on my version. After the presentation, Anna hooked her arm around Henry's and flashed me a smug, triumphant look, as though the project was already in the bag. But Anna and Henry had no idea, I didn't even want the project. In the end, of course, Anna and the project team hit it off. I pretended to leave in regret, but inside, I was elated. To meet the cash flow requirements, Henry and the Collins family had paid a huge price to secure funding once again. Emily even mortgaged all their family properties. On the day the project was set to begin, Anna, Emily, and Henry had just finished cutting the ribbon when the construction was suddenly halted. A crowd of people swarmed in, trapping them in the middle. Before they could even call the police, the three were already being yanked around, their clothes torn, faces pale. It wasn't until government officials intervened that the mob calmed down. Emily was in shock. Anna was showing signs of a miscarriage. Henry was frantic, his face flushed red, angrily holding Anna while baring his teeth. He raged at the law enforcement, demanding to know why they had stopped the construction. The officers calmly explained the reason. Emily fainted, and Anna began bleeding heavily. I had discovered the issue with the project during my initial research. But the Collins family was so desperate to make a comeback that they didn't do the proper due diligence. The false information I had deliberately leaked only confirmed their misguided belief in the project. The land in question was a government demolition zone, with many residents forcibly removed without the government's knowledge, and compensation negotiations were still unfinished. All the documents provided to the Collins family by the project team, from the land planning conditions to the construction permits, were fake and expired. Now, the project team had vanished with the money. The Collins family was finished. Because Emily had mortgaged all their properties, the mortgage company had them forcibly evicted. Henry had no choice but to move Emily and Anna into the small apartment that Anna had bought for him. At that point, Anna was already 8 or 9 months pregnant. She couldn't handle such hardship. And Henry, already stressed, couldn't care less about the emotions of a pregnant woman. They fought relentlessly. Until one day, during a push and shove, Anna accidentally fell to the ground. At the hospital, the fully formed fetus was removed from her womb, lifeless. Anna completely broke down. When I arrived at the hospital, Emily was angrily hitting Henry, calling him useless. When Anna saw me, her face brightened. Emily dragged me to Anna's side, desperately trying to keep me from leaving. Behind us, Henry's face was dark with fury. Anna's voice was shaky, weak. "George, I was wrong. Let's make up, please help me." Disgusted, I pushed Emily away and quickly moved a couple of meters away. My secretary, Daisy, handed me an alcohol wipe from her bag. Disgusting. I wiped my hands while speaking. Anna's face shifted from red to white, and her eyes darkened with hatred. Henry's eyes, bloodshot, were fixed on me. I exchanged a few words with Daisy and told her to wait for me back at the company. As soon as Daisy left, Henry suddenly went mad, grabbing my throat. The air became thick, suffocating. But the next second, Henry was kicked to the ground. The police had arrived. I had called them. I presented the high-definition surveillance footage from that day in my office. I accused Anna and Emily of stealing trade secrets, and Henry of attempted murder. As the police questioned them, they continued to curse me. Before I left, I told them. The Collins family company had already been acquired by me at a low price. I watched them, a grin spreading across my face. The mouse was destined to be caught by the cat. Emily hired a lawyer to defend herself and Anna. They wanted my forgiveness, but I rejected them repeatedly. In the final pre-trial mediation, I stood in front of them. Anna, crying, clung to my legs. She looked weak, clearly just discharged from the hospital, and her face was haggard. I frowned, trying to shake her off. But she held on desperately. "George, I love you. Please forgive me, please." Anna sobbed, her voice full of pleading. I shook my head and pulled out a document from my bag, throwing it in front of her. "Love me? Is loving me making your mother find someone to impersonate my father's illegitimate son? Is loving me getting pregnant by another man? Anna, you're filthy." As soon as my words left my mouth, Emily's face turned pale with fear. It was Emily who had brought Henry back in the first place. Henry appearing in front of my father was also Emily's doing behind the scenes. Even the paternity test was forged by Emily. And I had already uncovered the truth: Henry wasn't my brother. He wasn't my father's child. To seize our Rockefeller family's fortune, Emily truly went to any lengths. Henry, who had been silent until then, froze when he received the real paternity test results. He stayed in shock, unable to respond. What surprised me was that the once proud Emily suddenly fell to her knees in front of me with a thud. I quickly stepped aside. Emily kept bowing her head, apologizing. Looking at her and Anna kneeling at my feet, begging for forgiveness, a chill ran through me. I had never intended for them to survive this. I bent down, my voice cold and sharp in their ears. "Did you think about this when you plotted against Selina and the Rockefeller family? Go and pay for Selina's life." Emily's face was one of disbelief. I smiled, saying one last thing. "Oh, and by the way, I'm Selina's fiancé." I handed the truth about Selina's car accident to the police. The complete chain of evidence left Emily speechless. The driver was a gambler. Because he owed a huge debt, he took $10 million from Emily. The original plan was simply to flip Selina's car and injure her, but Anna caused an unintended accident. At the time, Emily used the excuse of shock and confusion to avoid further accountability. The driver only served 7 years. Emily was clever. She had hidden all the evidence of hiring the driver. Even the driver in prison kept quiet for her. I had been negotiating with them for a long time, and opening the driver's mouth had cost me dearly. But before I could gather all the evidence, Emily suddenly brought Henry into the mix. Greed shone in Emily's eyes. I was curious about what she planned to do, adjusting my strategy accordingly. I pretended to know nothing. But the plot she and Anna had been scheming against me was just like what they had done to Selina. I grew colder and colder with each passing moment. I would raise them to the sky, then tear down their pedestal with my own hands. I would ruin them, leaving them unable to rise again. After leaving the courthouse, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Selina, I've avenged you. Please don't blame me for acting on my own." The day everything was settled, I went to see Selina again. Her tombstone was covered with fallen leaves. I carefully cleared them away, knowing how much she loved cleanliness. I brought a large bouquet of bellflowers and gently placed them in front of her gravestone. I wanted to tell Selina that my love for her was unwavering, even in death. Leaning against the tombstone, tears flowed freely. I wanted to tell Selina how much I missed her. I stroked her photo, whispering softly to her. "I'm sorry, Selina." My voice grew choked with emotion. "Selina, I never got to propose to you." The once lively venue was now plunged into an endless silence. "Selina, do you recognize this? It's familiar, right?" I pulled out 2 rings from my pocket. In front of Selina, I slid one of them onto my ring finger. The other, I hung on a necklace around my neck. The rings were custom designed by Selina and me together. That day, I had planned to propose to her. Later, I fell gravely ill. In a daze, I saw Selina. After all this time, she had finally come to see me. The sky was filled with diamond-like fragments forming a galaxy. Blue flowers wound their way under the guiding lights to the stage. In that sparkling blue starry sky, Selina walked toward me, wearing the wedding dress she loved. In her hands, she held a bouquet of pure white bellflowers. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a diamond ring, and kneeled before her. I asked, "Selina, will you marry me in our next life?" Her voice was sweet and melodious. She said, "I will."